Yeah. So one question, I remember your oldest, even 12 years ago, her personality was very like independent or leadership. She displayed definite leadership qualities as a young girl. Like that's what we remember. My husband and I remember that about her. And so looking at her journey a little bit on social media, I see now she's in junior ROTC, and I don't know what else she's doing. She's in sports. And so I just wondered, as a mom of a child who has, like, we know our children's personality. Like, we spent a lot of time with them. We know how they are. How do you have you sort of invested in that, or have you like nurtured that for her to like hone in that and be a good version of a leader versus a bad, like how did you navigate that as she was growing up?
Well, it's funny that you remember that because, when I was first starting out teaching, I thought I was this great. And I taught younger kids. When I first started teaching, I taught younger kids. And so I had a classroom full of 5-year-olds, and they all did what they were supposed to do. And I really patted myself on the back. And then I had my own children, and she was not like the others. She was so strong-willed or stubborn, or just, she had her own opinions about how she wanted to do things. And always a kind heart, but just a big personality. And I think she was maybe 3 or so, and we were having like a battle of the wills about nap time or something like that. Something really important. And I remember just being so frustrated and saying, I have a degree in child development.
Oh my
I have
goodness.
experience working with children, and I can't get my 3-year-old to take a nap. And I remember my mom, who is very encouraging, and she said, yeah, you know what you're doing, and God gave you her because he knew she needed you. And it just was such a game changer. It just stopped me in my tracks, and I was like, it's not that I'm failing because she's not behaving like the other kids. It's that she's got this huge personality. And so, just hearing my mom say God chose you to be her mom because she needs you, it changed, like, reframed the way I saw the situation. I get a little teary I think about it, but
Yeah.
I was so frustrated leading up to that, and then hearing those words, it changed the way I saw it, the way I saw the situation. And I thought, yeah, she does have this just huge personality, and I can choose to fight with her and try and like break that spirit, or I can kind of harness that energy and direct it. And so that was kind of the choice I made when she was 3, is I wasn't going to like force her into extreme obedience, because it's just not her personality. My other child is very compliant.
Yeah, she's different.
Yeah, if I say don't cross this line, she'll be like, okay, cool. Even as a toddler, you could leave the baby gate open and she wouldn't go through it, because clearly that's where she's supposed to stop. But they're just complete opposites. And so I think it's good when you have multiple kids, because you realize a lot of who they are has really nothing to do with your parenting. We can tell ourselves like, I did that, but as soon as you have multiple kids, you're like, I didn't do any of this. Like, this is who they are. And so I just accepted that that's kind of her personality, and I've tried to guide that. And yeah, she's not very good at sitting in a chair and studying for hours and hours. So she didn't have great report cards in elementary school. But she's gone on, and through high school, she's developed those skills, and she's in AP classes, and she's doing really well.
How did she develop those skills? How did she turn from this to that? How?
She had great teachers. She was really fortunate, and there were a lot of teachers that helped guide her. She chose really great.
Wait, hold on. So as a teacher, did you personally talk to your coworkers to say, hey, could you, because, you work in the same area with them?
No, it was more of like, I knew what a great teacher that was. And so the year that she would hit that grade level, I could see the changes. You know how you can, like, your kids will come home and you can hear phrases that are obviously phrases from the classroom. That kind of way of doing things where you're like, oh, like they, when the like kindergartners doing like playing school with the Barbies, you can hear the teacher. Like, you know exactly what that teacher says all day, because that's what they're going to like repeat when they're like playing. And so even in like middle school and high school, I would see her say, oh, I better write that in my agenda. And I'm like, okay, I know that that's a school thing and that's coming from school. And her teachers are modeling being responsible and telling them to write down due dates and things like that. So yeah, I could see when she was with really strong teachers that would invest time in her, that she would absorb that like a sponge. There was also sort of a really funny moment in middle school where we had honor roll assemblies, and she realized that all of her friends made principal's honor roll, which is straight A's. And I'm not even sure if she made honor roll that time, or if she did, it was like the bottom one, the like half B's. But she realized that all of her friends had really good grades. And so she just decided she needed to get better grades, but it was her choice. Up until then, I had tried to like model homework time and I had read with them, but I didn't want to make my expectations get shoved on them. Like, I was a really good student and I made really good grades, but that's not necessarily who they are. And so I didn't want to push my goals and my values on them, because they're their own people. And I remember as outgoing and as strong of a leader and those types of things that my oldest is. So I tried to encourage good behaviors, but not like, you will make straight A's. But then she realized her friends were making straight A's, and then she decided that it was her choice and she wanted to start making good grades. So sometimes we have to just be a little bit patient as parents, kind of, again, plant the seed, make the best conditions possible, and then they sprout when they're ready. But now it's all her. Like, I don't have to chase her all through high school. I've not had to chase her about grades. She wants the grades. She wants to be a good student. And so she studies when I don't even know she's in a room studying. So
I just want to bring out that I know you're talking about your daughter, but in hearing how you're even talking about grades, because a lot of people are very concerned about grades, and so they harp on grades a lot as if that's the only thing that matters in the world, like so. But what I heard you say was, as a middle schooler, her grades weren't your level of grades when you were in school. So you had to make a choice at that time, I guess, to like, well, what really matters here? Does it matter that she has these grades that I had, that I know that she's capable of if she works harder or whatever? Like, you could have had that perspective, or you could have the perspective of, well, what's most important here. So how did you let that go, I guess? Because for some people, that is like, you have to do this because it's going to amount to, graduation and a job and, like all of these things that you sort of, but right there, when she was younger, you made a choice to not focus on that. How did you do that? Or why did you do that?
I guess a couple of reasons. I mean, like I said, she had a strong personality, and so it was a matter of sort of choosing your battles. Okay. So I drew a hard line at, she had to have B's. That was kind of the line. I knew she was capable of A's, but it just wasn't a battle I wanted to fight. And then, the other part of that is I was a single parent for a long, 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 long time. And that sort of makes decisions for you, because there's only so many hours in the day. And I just didn't have the energy left to fight with her when I got home, because I'm already trying to get all these kids at school to get their assignments turned in and that sort of thing. So sometimes you just have to pick your battles as far as, how many fights can I have going at one time?
Yeah.
So,
okay, that's realistic. That makes sense.
I was just tired at the end of the day, but I thought, I need to be a responsible parent. She needs at least good grades. They could be better, but she's involved in sports and she's involved in clubs and she's doing other things. And so I think a lot of parents mean well, but I see a lot of really, really stressed out kids because they think they have to do all the things, and they have to do them all with excellence. We want a well-rounded student for college, but they have to excel and be the best at all these different areas, and it's unrealistic. And it really stresses kids out. And so I also wanted a happy child. I didn't want a child who was full of anxiety. I didn't want a child who was afraid of failing, or me being disappointed in her. I didn't want her to have that type of like mental stress. So I wanted to make sure that I set goals that she could achieve and we could all end the day happy.
Okay, one more question about that. So how did you sort of not take ownership of her actions and her results? Like, how did you not, like, because, there's a lot of comparisons with parenting, like, well, my kids got blah, blah, blah. And what about your kids? You're like, you're not saying anything, because, but like, how do you not sort of take on what they do or don't do as like reflection of you? How did you do that?
Well, like you just said, you have to identify it and call it and be like, they're not me. I had good grades, but I wasn't the captain of any team, so they're not us. And as parents, we have to step back from that. They are not our little creations that we get to, show off like trophies. They're their own people. And again, I think when you have multiple kids, it becomes a little bit easier because you're like, I did my job. They have to choose the other side of it. My dad used to always say, I don't want to take all the credit because I don't want to take all the blame either. And so he put a lot of responsibility on us as students. I'm not going to take all the credit because if it goes wrong, I'm not going to take all the blame either. So we always knew that we had a lot of ownership in who we were as people, and we set our own goals and we chose our own path in life. And our parents were just really there to be a resource. They kind of cheered from the sidelines and they helped when they could. They filled out the FAFSA so we could take out our own student loans, that kind of thing. Like, they were there, but they were always in the backseat. And so, yeah, as parents, we just have to stop acting like our children are something we get credit for, because they're not. We're more like stewards, and we are responsible to make sure that they have their resources, but they are their own individual people. They really are their own people.
Wow. This is good. Like, this is good. This is a great conversation. Like, I wonder, would it have been effective for me to have this conversation earlier, like when they were earlier? But then I probably wouldn't have paid attention because I would have been like, I know what I'm doing. Like, I'm good,
Well, and I didn't know all this 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Yeah. I didn't know either. So these are just things I've learned. And now that we're getting near the end of high school, I feel like maybe I have the ability to say it worked, but I'm still like, we haven't crossed that stage. When they walk across the stage, that's the finish line. So it still could go terribly wrong. These are just my experiences. I remember Brad used to always use the expression, when the wheels came off the parenting wagon, and that can still happen at any time. So I try to be a bit humble because we haven't finished the race yet, so we still could have some bumps in the road.
So is the end of the race for you, based on what you just said, graduation from high school?
That's where I see the end of raising children. After that, then they're adults, and then we have a very different role as mentoring adults and having an adult relationship. And I've been really fortunate to have a wonderful adult relationship with my parents. I know not everybody does, but yeah, my parents have been fantastic in our relationship as adults, and it's different. It's really kind of cool to hang out with your parents when you're an adult. And so I kind of look forward to that, hanging out with my kids when they're adults. I think that's going to be cool.
Okay, so the switch happens at the graduation of high school in your family, kind of.
Yeah, because then, they move out. Particularly in our situation, my child's going to move to another continent because she'll be going back to the States.
Wow, okay.
So I've had to very consciously prepare her for that she will be on her own at 18. And so I want her to be confident. I want her to be able to make decisions and handle problems, because I literally will not be there. There's no way I can help her with that. I can FaceTime and give encouragement, but that'll be it. So yeah, the June is coming.
Wow. Yeah, that's also good to have a goal in mind. I mean, and in this case, you have an actual date goal. This is where she's going to be. And you're in your mind, you're like, I need to do the best to prepare her for that life of me not being there. So if I had held her hand the whole way and did everything for her until then that's setting her up for a great failure. So you don't want that. So we have to let go earlier so that they can practice, I guess, at home.
Absolutely. And you hear about the helicopter parents and that kind of thing. And it is a cultural thing. And I don't blame parents, because, if anything happens, if a child is in the front yard and something happens, oh, where were the parents? Where were the parents? So as a culture, we're expecting parents to be there at all times, but the reality is we can't. And certainly once they're adults, we can't be there. So we have to prepare ourselves and prepare them for that time. And it starts really young. It starts when they're, 7 and making their own bed, and 10 when they're making hot dogs on the stove. You have to teach them independence all along. But yeah, parenting's the only job that if you do it right, you put yourself out of work. So.
Mm. And I just want to point out, like you were saying, making their bed when they're 7. So my kids don't make their beds. So I just want to, not that, because some people were like, oh, I got to make sure I do all the things that she said so that I can have the same results that she said. But it doesn't work like that. Like, I don't pressure my kids with making their bed or keeping their room clean, because to me, it's like, well, you need your space. So fine, as long as it's not creeping out of the room or something like that. But that's my, like, we all get to be sort of individual and make our own choices there, because it's like, what matters to you and your family? What are your values that you want to pass on in your family life and relationships? And so, so it can be different. It can look different. So as people like talk to others and get advice, sometimes we just have to be careful. Like, we listen, but we also are careful. Like, we're not, it's not like a recipe where it's like, you do these things, you get this. Like, it doesn't work like that at all. We get ideas and we get encouragement, but ultimately for me, when I struggle, it is encouraging to talk to others that have children ahead, and I realize, oh, I'm not the only one that struggles here and had to work through this. But what's most encouraging, like for me, I pray. Like, when my daughter wakes up in a mood and slams the door when she leaves for the bus stop, I'm just, God, please help her, help me, help her. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I didn't even do anything for her to be acting like this. And so it's like self-control for me to not blow up because she blew up, because what are we really modeling here? So, okay, that, but then also it's like, God, I know you know her. You know everything about her. You know what's going on in her mind and in her heart. And I need you to help me to just be the best parent that I can be with her, because I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like I'm failing. I need you to just be in this situation, be in her heart and in her life. And as she goes to school, like, I don't know all that's going on. She chooses to tell me some things, but not all things, so, so I often go to God and like, please, like, be in her life. And, and so that is comforting to me, so that I'm not dumping on her or dumping on other people because I'm frustrated, or because I'm anxious, because I don't know what, all of these things. Like, I sort of dump on God and like, please, like, this is how I'm feeling. I don't know what to do. And then eventually I feel better, but also he sends people in my life at certain times that give me the encouragement that I need. Like, hey, you're doing it. Like, you as a parent are doing exactly what you can be doing, which is keep coming to me, and also just be humble. Like, just, like, you're trying to figure it out, and that's where, like, you're not going to have all the answers like you want it, and just like they're not either. Like you said, we're all just sort of doing the best that we can. And so, yeah.
I had a lot of those conversations with God where I said, it's your child, God. I give them to you, because I don't know what to do. So I had a lot of those conversations, and still do. It only gets worse when they're driving and mobile and out alone in the world. So you just pray that Jesus is with them, and try and stay calm yourself, and hope that it all works out fine. And usually it does. But yeah, I think that's really important to point out, that there's no perfect recipe. I guarantee you, if I went in my kids' room right now, their beds aren't made. It's just an example. And a lot of it is just, again, it's trying to get through the day. So as a single mom, they started doing their own laundry when I realized that rather than put away the folded clothes, they were shoving them in the laundry basket. and I about lost my mind. That was not a pretty moment. There was smoke coming out my ears, and so that's when they started washing their own clothes. And they were very young. It was like a lower elementary school, but
Wow.
I just
Yeah.
couldn't take it anymore. And I kind of snapped, and I was just like, spend all day on Saturday doing all this laundry, and I wash it, and I dry it, and I fold it, and you put it back in the laundry basket. And so, yeah, that's when we took on the responsibility of doing our own laundry, which sounds really beautiful, and sounds so great.
And there's always a reason, right? Why we
Right.
kind of move ahead.
It was I was losing my mind, and it was a thing, and then it taught them that responsibility for what they needed at that moment. So yeah, and then I have another friend who does the laundry for her whole family of 6 on the weekend. Even though she works full time, she likes it, and she just does it for them. And they're still responsible kids. They do other things. They have ways that they make money, babysitting and dog sitting and all sorts of things. They're very responsible young people, but she likes doing their laundry. I don't like doing laundry. So every family's different, and the recipe's different. But as long as your heart's in the right place and the kids know that you believe in them and that they are capable of taking care of themselves and being responsible in some way, then that's the heart of it all.
Yeah, that was a great example about the contrast with even the laundry. Yeah, that's a great example.
There's
about
no right
how
or wrong.
families are different. Yeah.
Absolutely.